Inviting me. I'm
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Right.
Really happy to be here. And so just to follow up on that great introduction, back when I was a student at UNLV, we didn't have a recycling program, and I thought this was a very big problem. I was like probably many of you, I came to UNLV with a specific career in mind. I actually came to UNLV wanting to be a journalist.
Oh.
So my idea behind journalism is sort of similar to where I ended up. I wanted to be a journalist so I could expose the evil, what was happening in certain areas like the environment and wildlife conservation, or actually endangered species. And so I thought I could do that through journalism.
Wow.
And, you know, it's really crazy, but back then we didn't have computers.
Wow.
Oh my God,
How long ago?
right? So, we did all our work on word processors.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't a typewriter though. Hey, I'm a little bit older than that. And so, I wasn't very good at being a journalist. Because deadlines, journalism's about deadlines, right? And I sucked at deadlines, okay? Because I didn't have a computer. If I had a computer, I could do it. And I also joined as the writing staff of the Rebel Yell. And they would send me on these crappy assignments. And I would be like, this is not what I want to do. I do not want to go and do lighting surveys and then write about it. And then I would get really mad because I would turn in an article and the editor would chop it up. And sometimes the message of the article would be gone, and I'd be like, you weren't even there. Like, how? So I thought, this is what my life is going to be like. I'm going to hate this. I'm going to hate this. I'm not going to be able to do this. So I decided, okay, well, I'm going to change my major. So I was like, I'm going to do accounting. It's right, random, right? But I thought, God, you can work from home when you do accounting. Yeah, that lasts like 2 weeks. So then, I actually was in an accounting class trying to figure out how I could get out of the test. And there's this stuff that makes you throw up, and I was seriously trying to find it. But we didn't have the internet, you know, so you can't find stuff. I went to the career services, and I asked them to help me, but they only help seniors, but they made an exception, and they sat down with me. And they said, well, what do you love? And I said, well, I love hiking, I love camping, I love the environment, I love animals. And they said, well, the environmental studies program started. Why don't you go and talk to the director and see if that's the right program for you? And at the time, I was trying to start an environmental student group on campus, and I needed a faculty advisor. So I was like, oh, I'm going to ask him to be my faculty advisor. So I went and talked to him, and I ended up being the second student to sign up for that program. It's called Environmental Studies. It was founded by my hero, Dr. James Deacon, who just recently passed away. I became an environmental studies student, and I was a sophomore. And he said, okay, you're going to have to, when you're a senior, you're going to have to write an undergraduate senior thesis. And I said, well, how do you do that, and what do I write about? And I know you guys are young, so you don't know this saying, but there was a bumper sticker.
Oh.
This is a very powerful message, very succinct, powerful message in my opinion. And I was like, I'm going to try to get recycling at UNLV. And so my student group, we worked on water conservation at UNLV. We changed a whole bunch of areas of desert landscaping by we raised $25,000 to do that.
Wow.
And then we also worked on the reauthorization of the Endangered Species Act, which was supposed to be reauthorized in 1992, and it's still not reauthorized. And we lobbied our senators. We went to Washington and actually lobbied them on it. Senator Harry Reid was one of our big fans. But anyway, so it took me 3.5 years to write my undergraduate senior thesis. And then when I got it done, when you put that much work into something, you just don't want it to sit in a file cabinet or on a bookshelf, or get thrown in the trash. And so I decided to make a goal. And this, I think, is very important. When you're trying to figure out what you want to do and you're trying to implement your passions, make a goal. And always have a time on it. Don't just make it like, I hope this happens, because that's counterproductive. So what you want to do is, what I said was, if I cannot get the Rebel Recycling Program started in 1 year, I'm going to go to graduate school. I do not have a master's degree, and I did not go to graduate school because 6 months after I made that goal, I spoke to the Board of Regents. They approved the Rebel Recycling Program. 6 months after that, I became the UNLV Rebel Recycling Coordinator, and that was 20 years ago, July 1st of this year. So the Rebel Recycling Program turns 20 years this year.
Hey.
That's where you take something that you care so deeply about and you try to make a difference and you try to make a change. And I think putting a timeline on it is really important. And it's actually something I'm not following right now. So when I go home, mine is that I read a book, and this is another thing, is you can find your passions in very odd places. But I read a book by Bill McGibbons. It's called Earth with 2 A's, because he says we no longer live on the earth that we grew up on, which is the truth. It's a different world, it's a different climate. So he renamed it with 2 A's. I think that's brilliant. But, and he said if we're gonna combat climate change, we need to go back to think globally, act locally. So of course this hit home for me, right? I was like, he's saying think globally, act locally. And so now what I'm trying to do is set up a farm to grow food so that Las Vegas, which is an island in the middle of a desert, doesn't have to import all its food. Because we cannot be sustainable if all our food comes from outside our limits. And so I'm trying to set up an aquaponic farm, which will then hopefully be a model for other people to set up aquaponic farms. And my hope is that from my idea, we'll get like 100 aquaponic farms and we can grow our own food because it's very water conscious.
Awesome.
So it's this is my new thing. This is what I'm trying to do. I really need to put a timeline on it because it's already been 2 years. I have the land though, I'm there, I got the land and it's graded. And I have the greenhouse, it's just not up yet. So putting a timeline on what you want to do, I think helps you stay focused. And also thinking about what you love to do. I love my job. I love coming to work. There's rarely a day where I'm like, God, I don't want to go. There are a couple days, especially like when I have fun out in the environment, camping or hiking, I would like to just stay there and never come back. But I love my job. And I think that's really important, is if you can take your passion and turn it into a job and do it every day, that's where you've won, right? You've created something that is sustainable because you're earning money while doing something you love while helping other people or helping the environment or helping animals or whatever you think is important. And helping people can be big or it can be little. Like as you were up here, I was thinking, wow, she'd be a really great facilitator. And facilitators help other people. They help you get your meeting or your retreat or your whatever to an end point that people can hold on to and take home with them. That's little, but that's big. You know what I mean? And so when you're thinking about what you love or what you want to do, you don't have to try to save the world like I'm trying to do. And I remember the first time I said that to my dad and he laughed at me. And I was like, why are you laughing? I am so gonna save the world. And he's just like, because he knew. It's way more, there was no internet, you guys. So I didn't really know it was as messed up as it is, right? You all know it's messed up. I had no clue it was this bad when I was little. So the other thing is parents, friends, they can try to squash your dreams. They can try to tell you that what you're doing is not right. If you believe and you're passionate, don't listen to them. No matter how much you love them. I was going to be a zoologist, and my dad, I was 12. He took me to the library because, you guys, there was no internet. And so what are you going to do with that? What is a zoologist? A zoologist studies animals.
Okay.
First of all, he was wrong. Secondly, it really impacted me. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a zoologist. I would have been a great zoologist. In fact, right now, my son and I are studying about Jane Goodall. And if you don't know who she is, you should look her up because she's very inspirational. And she went to Africa to study the chimpanzees with no undergraduate degree, right? None. She was one of the only humans to get a PhD without ever having to going through an undergraduate or master's degree.
Is it possible?
Yes, she did it. She made it happen. She fits, like, if she was standing right here, she'd blow you all away. It fits exactly perfectly with what you're talking about right now. So look up Jane Goodall. Just read her wiki page. So, because you all have the internet. I don't know where I was going with that, but there are instances where your dream might seem, she grew up in London, and she told her parents, I'm gonna get to Africa. And they encouraged her. So you have your parents and your people that don't encourage you, and you have your parents and your people in your life that will encourage you. Find the ones that will, the ones that will help you.
Right.
It's very important. They won't hold you back. So, I don't know. That's kind of the story. I had also, back in the day, when I became the Rebel Recycling Coordinator, I made hardly any money. Like, really not anything. And all of a sudden I get paid once a month, which is really, really hard to adjust to. And I have friends that are bartenders and cocktail waitresses. This is back in the 90s, you guys. This is when they still make bank, but they were being cold. And I was working, maybe I should quit and I should just be a cocktail waitress. I can make a lot of money. But you know what? I kept saying to myself, what are they gonna do when they're, because 40 was old. What are they gonna do when they're 40? And now I'm over 40. What are they gonna do when they're 40? What are they gonna be doing? I'm trying to build something here. I'm gonna stick with this. But that's not to say that I didn't want to quit 100 times.
Right.
Maybe 1,000.
Right.
I remember being sick, and recycling never stops, right? It never ends. And I was really the only one doing it. So I'm sick, and I'd still come to work, which is really bad, actually. But I would still come, and I would throw up outside buildings at UNLV, behind the dumpster. I remember one time I was going too fast in my little golf cart, and I had a recycle bin on the back, and I turned the corner too fast. It was a windy day. That sucker fell over, and all the papers blowing down right in front of the desert landscaping by MPE in physics. So this blowing into the cactuses, it's getting stuck in there, it's shooting down the sidewalk, and I just sat down on the side of on the curb, and I started bawling. I just could not stop crying, and people are trying to help me because I'm crying, and then I just kind of said, okay, stop crying and just get up and pick up the paper. And that's what you got to think about. You just got to stop crying and get up and do whatever the hell you need to do.
All right.
So that's what I did. And I wanted to cry, I wanted to quit. I just had to get up and chase the damn paper. And I've been chasing paper ever since. Seriously. So, find what you want to do, pursue it, don't let anyone stop you, and just make sure that you're doing it and it makes you happy and it helps other people. Because really, that's where it all comes from, right?
Right.
Isn't when you inspire other people and help other people. Anyone have any questions for me? I guess I could do questions, yeah?
Okay, you wanted to give up, and now you say your friends were making more than you. Now where are you at on the economic scale?
Now I'm actually compensated very well. I have an awesome retirement, which they cannot claim. At UNLV, when you work there, you dollar for dollar match on your retirement, and then they invest it for you. So I'm already got a really good retirement account going. Healthcare has always been great for me, whereas when you're a cocktail waitress or a bartender, they didn't have that. I mean, now it's a little better, right? But they didn't have that back then. They don't have any savings. I'm still friends with most of them. They don't have any savings. They don't really have anything to show for it. It was a long time before I got compensated right. And I'm going to tell you what really happened was when somebody, I think in human resources, said, you know what, you have a female. I'm the only female manager in facilities, and they said you have a female manager making way too little compared to her equivalents. And that's when I had this huge jump in my income. I get merit increases for doing a good job. That was none of that happened during the financial downturn. But I would say, I've paid vacations, paid holidays, paid sick days. Not that I get sick hardly ever. I actually lose sick days, which is dumb, but I'm not going to call in sick when I'm not actually sick. So it's been worth it, you know, but it wasn't for a long time, but I stuck with it, and now I'm there. There's a great saying, I know you don't want me to say this, but one of my favorite sayings I read one time was, do what you love and the money will follow. And that's a very important thing. Another great book you might read is What Color is Your Parachute? So, that's a good book. But that's the thing is when you have a passion and people see you trying to change things or trying to help or trying to do something, and they appreciate what you're doing because it benefits somebody or something, they're going to support you, and eventually they're going to get behind you. The other thing is that when you show true passion and true commitment, people recognize that and appreciate it. Even if they don't like what you're doing, they at least appreciate your tenacity and your dedication. So, and in fact, that's the question I posted on my Facebook page, so everyone could respond to that question, and most of them said your dedication, your commitment, your tenacity, your feistiness, you know, that kind of thing, to stick with what you're doing. So, yeah. I had another point that popped in my head when I was doing that, but I don't remember. But most of my friends that were bartenders, they don't really have a lot to show. And some of them are still bartenders. You know, they're 40 whatever years old still being bartenders. I have a friend that I went to high school with, and she's trying her darndest right now because she doesn't want to be a blackjack dealer anymore. She's 44. She doesn't want to be a blackjack dealer anymore. And she's trying to think of what she's going to do with the rest of her life because she hates it. Wow. And a lot of my friends, too, you know, smoking in those casinos, their health has deteriorated from inhaling all of that for so long. So is that worth whatever money they made when they were younger? I don't think so. That was one of the things that deterred me. I was like, I hate smoking. I don't want to breathe that in. Thank goodness. So, but, you know, those things are good as long as you save your money to do what you love. You know, if all of them had saved their money and now opened a business doing something they loved, that would have been great. But hardly any of them did that.
I consider myself a futurist sometimes in certain aspects. Yeah. So I was wondering, what were your thoughts on like the future of like recycling and agriculture and things like that?
Well, there's two things I want to say to that. One is there's different kinds of people. There's people who live in the past, which nobody should do because it just doesn't help you. There's people who live in the present, which is a fine place to live, you know? And then there's people like me who live in the future. I was constantly, as a child, always thinking about what I was going to do next. Okay, so I'm 6, making sure everybody knows I'm going to college, right? Yeah. We're talking, that's a long time. You're 6, and I'm telling people, I will go to college. And then when you're in college, you're thinking about this. So living in the future is not a bad thing. Future for the planet, future for agriculture, future for recycling, I think that that's what motivates me too, is that I want to make sure that all these things continue and keep going. I was telling them outside that one of the worst things that the environmental movement ever did was coin the phrase save the planet. It's really not about saving the planet. Okay, this planet's going to go on regardless of whether we're on it or not. It's about save the humans, right? If we don't have clean air, clean water, and soil that we can grow food in, we are not going to continue to exist. And there'll be a lot of human suffering and a lot of war over resources and water. And I think that's something we all need to think about and try to help avoid. There's a great documentary called Dirt that talks about how our planet's topsoil, which is what we grow our food in, is disappearing. And it takes hundreds of thousands of years to make topsoil. There's a place in New York that used to have like thick topsoil, and now it's down to this very thin layer where all they can grow is pumpkins. And that's from mismanagement. That's from poor conservation. That's from bad decisions. And I think that we all need to make good decisions when it comes to the environment. Again, Miss Goodall, Dr. Goodall, she talks a lot about this as well. recycling is a big part of that. It saves resources, it prevents pollution, it saves water, it saves energy, it saves wildlife because of habitat destruction. Doesn't have to be, like every time you recycle an aluminum can, you're helping save parrots. They're an endangered species, and part of it is from mining of bauxite ore, which is what is made in an aluminum can. So you can think of lots of species that would be saved by recycling. I think in terms of farming in Las Vegas, aquaponics is the way to do it. Aquaponics is the merger of aquaculture and hydroponics. You all heard of hydroponics. Aquaculture is the raising of water animals for food. Hydroponics is you can only put in chemicals to grow plants, and you have to dump the water because the salt builds up. In aquaponics, you have fish, they poop and pee. The bacteria in the system convert the poop and the pee into a usable fertilizer for the plants. The plants take it up, grow bigger, the water goes through the system, and it comes back to the fish clean. And that's all the fish care about, is that you give them food and they have clean water. And there's very little evaporation, and if you dump your system, you just screwed up because you just got rid of all your beneficial bacteria. So you never dump the water. You have very little evaporation.
So self-sustaining.
It's very sustainable. And that's the only way that Las Vegas is ever going to be able to grow food, period. We don't have soil to grow food. We don't have enough water to waste by spraying a field. So this is how we're going to have local food. And I'm surprised no one's done it yet. That's what's crazy to me. So,
what are your thoughts on global warming?
Global warming? I learned about global warming when I was an environmental studies student, and I think we spent about 15 minutes on it. And I remember sitting in class thinking, this seems really serious. And then the topic ended, and I was like, that's weird. Because to me, it seemed incredibly serious. But it just wasn't people just thought this is not going to happen. But you can see another planet like Venus. Venus has got 98% of its atmosphere is carbon, and it gets well above 400 degrees on the planet all the time. So day and night. Doesn't matter which side of the planet is facing the sun and which side isn't facing the sun. It's always ridiculously hot on Venus. Whereas you can look at the planet Mercury, which has no atmosphere. So the side facing the sun is ridiculously hot, and this because it's right next to it. And the side away from the sun is ridiculously cold because it has no atmosphere to trap the heat. And so if we're taking our stored carbon and we're burning it, it has nowhere else to go but the atmosphere. It's gonna build up in the atmosphere. Now trees and plants take it up and turn it into oxygen, but what are we doing to our trees? We're cutting them down. We're cutting a football field of rainforest down every minute. I mean, we're destroying the lungs of the planet by taking the trees away. And then the ocean's also a big sink for carbon. It sucks up a lot of carbon, but it will reach capacity as well. And what happens is acidification of the ocean, which is where the coral die and nothing can live in that spot. It scares the heck out of me because I have a kid. And some people don't believe in it, but scientists pretty much agree. And I think it's kind of easy to see that it's happening because all that stored carbon, oil, wood, this is all stored in an inert solid form, and we burn it and we release the carbon. So I don't understand how people don't think it's happening, but I can understand some people don't. Okay. So follow your passion. The other thing is one of the things that jerked me into this was I had someone say to me, you have awesome ideas, but you don't follow through. Ooh. And this is not even a person that I was very close with, but they said that, and that was like knives in me. I was like, this person is so right. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to be like that. And that was that very minute that made me so mad at myself is when I changed.
Mm.
And that's how easy you can change.
Wow.
1 minute or less. It was very quick. I said, I don't want to be that person. Change. Done. Sticking with this recycling program idea.